We're joined now by the Oakland County Commissioner from the 13th District. Marcia Gershenson joins us once again on the Oakland County MegaCast. Commissioner Gershenson, thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
We appreciate having you on. How have you been since we last spoke?
I've been good. I mean, I am totally following all the quarantine regulations. I'm a senior. My husband's a senior. We take it completely seriously. I found your last segment really interesting because the problem is the lag time in getting the test results. My son and daughter they drove across country to come to Michigan from California, and they were tested over a week ago. And I just texted them, I don't think they've gotten their results yet. Well, that's problematic because maybe they were fine a week ago and then who knows what they are now. And like you said, it's the ability to do the contact tracing. So I was going to recommend you have the Oakland County doctor. His name is Russell Faust. Yes. He's actually in the paper today talking about the difficulty in the lag time of labs.
Yeah, we've talked to Dr. Faust before, and it'll be interesting. We're going to try to reach out to him definitely to get more details on how that could impact the county's response, because the county does a lot of its own contact tracing in partnership, of course, with local municipalities in the state of Michigan and so on, in order to protect from that community spread that we were warning about in our opening headlines.
Right. And in the meantime, we're doing so many things at the county. I don't. Have you had our county exec, Dave Coulter, on the show?
Yes, we have.
Okay, very good. So you know that the county received $219 million in CARES funding, and that is money we've been trying to get out into the community and help small businesses reopen. As well as giving money to veterans and nonprofits and schools. We're working with the schools. That's a really, not to digress, but that's such a perplexing problem because I know so many young families who are suffering because the kids are home, they need to go to work, and it's creating quite a strain on the whole family dynamic, including a lot of marriages. So it's a very complex problem. I'm very hopeful that the schools will be able to open at least. I think I heard some schools are talking about breaking classes into 2 segments, opening 2 days, taking Wednesday off for cleaning, and then opening the second 2 days. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. You've got West Bloomfield on following me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm looking forward to that. But I did want to be sure all of the listeners and viewers knew about the newest small business recovery grant, because we had grants. We were overextended. We're now opening up a new grant, and they are for any retail stores, restaurants, personal service business like beauty salons and fitness centers that were impacted by the pandemic. Had to have suffered revenue related to the pandemic, whether they were closed or had to hire additional help. So the application is on our website at oakgov.com, and I would encourage anyone that's listening whose business has been impacted to please apply.
Commissioner, if I am a small business, what's the best way for me to go about to apply? I know the application is on the website, but what's the most that the small business can receive? And can you clarify, it's a grant and not a loan, correct?
It is a grant, right. So that's a big difference between a grant and a loan, although many of the loans that have been given out are being forgiven. But this is a grant, and I believe it's up to at least $10,000. But the best way is to go through oakgov.com, but also to reach out to your commissioner. You know, you have 3 commissioners in West Bloomfield, and there's 21 of us all over, and we're advocating for residents, helping them get their unemployment, which has been an ordeal for a lot of people. For some people, it's gone smoothly, but for others, it's created problems. So I work almost every day with different families that are struggling to get through the red tape. And we've got a phenomenal department under the direction of Jennifer Llewellyn from Michigan Works, who's a real incredible person, very interesting person to have on your show as well. Have you met Jennifer?
Yes, we've met Jennifer. We talked to her extensively previously.
Okay. So she's just doing incredible work, her department, and we just allocated an additional $1 million to her department. It's funny, $219 million is so much money, and yet we're giving out millions of dollars to people because this is what we need to do to restart the economy. In addition, the state of Michigan received $100 million in CARES funding for small businesses. So that one is available through the state website. And then we also have an entrepreneur fund where we're trying to help those people that are entrepreneurs and may not have the same qualifications as a small business does. I think a small business has to have under 100 employees. Entrepreneur can have 1 employee. So we're really trying to hit all the targets. And if in your programming you sense that there's a need that we're not addressing, I hope you'll reach out to me or any one of the commissioners.
We absolutely will. Marcia Gershenson with us. She's the Oakland County Commissioner from the 13th District. So you talk about aid for these small businesses, and we've gone through those programs a little bit at length with other commissioners. We had Kristen Nelson on last week who explained in a lot of detail a lot of those programs and how they've been working in her district. So you did mention earlier that the county is also focusing on providing additional aid and assistance to schools as they prepare for the fall. Could you go into a little more detail about how the county is currently working with the schools and continues to work with our local school districts as they try to tackle this ever-complicated issue of educating kids in the fall with the element of the unknown with this pandemic still very much in place?
Sure. I just do want to leave a little bit of time. I was going to make a statement about the foreclosure trial. I've been getting a ton of questions about that. But in relation to the schools, we have partnered with Beaumont, and there's going to be a hotline for parents whose children are going back to school. If parents have any concerns about their child's health or somebody in the class or any question at all, there will be a free hotline for parents to access when kids get ready to go back into school. And another thing we're working on right now is children are impacted not only academically, but socially too. This is having a big impact on children's mental health. So one of the things we're really focusing on now, some schools have mental health services, but not enough, not nearly every school in Oakland County. And we really feel there's going to be a surge in the need for mental health services for youngsters. So this is something we're trying to address for seniors. I don't know if Commissioner Nelson spoke about her incredible program that's geared towards seniors and loneliness and issues seniors are facing. But we're also predicting that there's going to be a lot of issues with children. And in that came in the news last week with the Grace case. But more than that, the children that are adjusting to not being with their friends, and some kids respond better to learning online and some don't. There's a lot of emotional aspects, and that might be interesting to talk about with West Bloomfield too, especially for those 10th and 11th graders that are supposed to be applying to college. And everything we've always done, we're going to be doing differently now. And this is a generation that's really going to be impacted by the virus long term. So we want to try to address some of those psychosocial needs.
Marcia Gershenson, Oakland County Commissioner from the 13th District. One more quick question about schools before we'll go into the foreclosure lawsuit and get an update on that. We've talked previously. We talked previously with Representative Brenda Carter, one of the state representatives, and it was actually mentioned. I brought this up with other commissioners and other government officials we've spoken to, that Representative Carter had an educational experience town hall with a bunch of the local school districts and talked about providing programs. The question came up about providing programs to families to be able to engage their kids locally, or at least be able to supervise and assist their kids with online learning when parents are going back to work. Is there anything that the county maybe is working on with community organizations, with local businesses, with child care providers to help provide those services to families as they're approaching the fall, trying to go back to work if they have to go back into the office, or even if they're working from home and just need to be able to focus, to provide outlets to have children outside of the home continue their learning and provide for these families?
Well, one thing that became very obvious during this whole crisis is the difference between the have and the have-nots, and that so many of our kids do not have access to the internet. So that is something that we're looking at as commissioners to include in our budget, to be sure that every community has broadband service. And this is something that the county has looked at before, and they 15 years ago, and they were unable to accomplish the goal of every community having internet. But that is something that we're really focused on, is being sure every child has the materials if indeed it turns out to be another semester of online learning, to succeed. So we're working with the state reps. Brenda Carter's doing an incredible job because her district, Pontiac, has been disproportionately affected by some of the problems that we've become aware of. So it's a goal, I know, of County Executive Coulter. It's a goal of the commissioners to try to equalize the playing field so that every child, no matter where they're learning, has access to the right tools they need.
Marcia Gershenson with us. She's the Oakland County Commissioner from the 13th District. Transitioning, you had mentioned previously in passing, there's a lawsuit currently underway regarding a foreclosure of a property by Oakland County. Could you go into details for those unfamiliar about what that situation is and where that lawsuit is currently in place?
Okay, so I did want to give a little bit of an update, understanding that this is primary season and that there's a very contested primary for the county executive seat. So I do want to make a statement that I'm not making any political statement here. So I went through the court ruling, and I'm going to actually read it so that I'm accurate. But the Supreme Court ruled to end a practice that the county was using to sell foreclosed properties at a profit to the county. Our treasurer, Andy Meisner, was working under Public Act 123, which was written in 1999, which shortens the amount of time property owners have to pay their delinquent taxes before losing their property under a process called tax reversion. The act was originally intended to eliminate blighted and neglected properties, criticized that it creates undue hardships on homeowners, and even those homeowners that have minor debt, like this gentleman Raffaelli, who owned $8 and change and was foreclosed. The Supreme Court issued a ruling, and the wording is pretty hard to understand, so I've translated it to say that there's a rule in government, a longstanding rule, that government can take property from an individual if it's for the public good, such as roads, sports arenas, I-75. They can take that property from it's called a taking, from the owner, but they have to pay just compensation. So in this case, we took the house. The guy owned around $8 and change, and we didn't pay him anything for it. And we have a right to get the taxes, interest, penalties, and fees. But in addition, we took the profit when the house was sold. And that is what the Supreme Court ruled against. And really, the commissioners have been against this since last September. We issued a we did a resolution against this process. Commissioner Bob Hoffman out in Highland had an issue with property where he felt people were their property was unjustly taken. So he authored a resolution that many of us signed on to. And unfortunately, our treasurer did object to that. And so it didn't go anywhere for a while. Well, now we have formed a new committee, and it's a bipartisan committee. And it's a committee not to investigate the treasurer. It's a committee to investigate the policy and to see if we can change it and maybe put in some protections for people that owe very little amounts so that they don't have to go through this process. There's like an automatic process when you don't answer the tax notices, the delinquent tax notices, and it goes into a computer and it just starts working automatically. So we want to see if we can change that to where we're alerted, or the treasurer's office is alerted that this is a case that involves under a certain amount of money. So it's an effort, and plus we're going to have to come up with, the county is going to have to come up with between $30 and $50 million to settle this. So that's another reason that we have formed a special committee to look at where we're going to get that money, because that is taxpayer money. And that's one of the things the commission does, is we allocate your taxpayer money. And I can assure you, we allocate it to amazing things like the health department, the sheriff's department, so many great services we provide. This is not one of them. So we have to come up with a way that will not impact the services residents expect to pay this fine.
Well, and that's good to hear from the commission level that there is bipartisan work on this, where you see a problem that's within the rules that are in place for the county officials and for local counties like Oakland County, but also see the problems with some of those rules and try to work to make them as equitable as possible for our local residents. So good to hear. We'll keep up on that story for sure as it continues to progress forward. Lastly, I see behind you, the flag behind you is about voting rights. And so as we're approaching the primaries on August 4th and the general election in November, with all the other variables in place, getting people out to vote and inspiring people to go out to vote and have their votes counted, and especially in terms of absentee voters with the current issues with the mail. How much of an effort is Oakland County, especially the Board of Commissioners, putting in place, regardless of their constituents' political affiliations or candidates that they support, to inspire people to go out to vote and make sure that with these local clerks, we can make sure that everybody who does register to vote and goes to the polls or votes absentee has their voices heard in August and November?
Well, I don't know if you're aware of the new committee we formed to focus. Are you aware of the committee to focus on this election?
Yes.
So we are giving more money to local communities because they're having a difficult time finding poll workers. The average age of poll workers is 74, and that's a vulnerable COVID group. So we're really looking for a lot of younger people, and you could make $250 to $300, $350 a day. And it's gratifying work, but it is all day, and almost every community needs poll workers. So if you're out there and you're looking for some work, please contact your local clerks. In addition, we are also going to be sending you, for the November election, we're going to be putting the stamps on your return absentee ballots, because so many people don't realize it takes 2 stamps to return that ballot. So we're encouraging people to take it to your local clerk's office, where we've put out a box, a freestanding box, so no one has to touch it, no one has to touch anybody or see anybody. You can have your mask on and drop off your ballot. But we are really encouraging people to vote by mail or dropping it off in person. And I have to say that I keep hearing about people that are spoiling their ballot, which means they're voting Democrat and Republican. Now, I'm somebody who believes you should not vote party. You should vote for the best person for every job. But our system is so antiquated that for primaries, you can only vote one party. And if you vote both parties, your ballot is spoiled and it will not count, and you won't be notified if you're voting by mail. If you're in person, the machine just spits it out and says this ballot is spoiled and you'll get another one. But when you do it by mail, there's nobody that's going to give you that ballot back because it's not counted until next Tuesday, and there isn't time to notify someone. So my closing words would be sure to stay on one side of the ballot. There's only one race, the circuit court race, that is nonpartisan, that everybody should vote for the person they support. And then if your community has any millages or issues that are specific to your community, those of course are nonpartisan. And I'm also just going to encourage people to wear a mask. We need to move on from this virus, and I'm convinced that if we all comply and wear masks and social distance, we're going to get better. I think there were no new cases over the weekend, which is pretty incredible. So
there was 1,041 total new cases that were reported over the weekend. Yeah, no new deaths, but there were 1,000 new cases. Of course, that's combined from partial Friday, Saturday, and then all of Sunday. Commissioner Marcia Gershenson, anything else for us before we let you go today?
Well, thank you for correcting me, and I hope to come back. There's so many pressing issues. It's such an important time, and we all want to be paying attention and doing everything we can to help one another, be kind, be loving. It's a tough time for people. Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you very much. We appreciate having you on. Marcia Gershenson, Oakland County Commissioner, representing the 13th District on the Oakland County Board of Commissioners.